I want to talk to you about why it's important not to shut your brain off when you're using AI agents and developing in 2026. So you may be wondering where this is coming from. In the SaaS product that I'm working on, which is a financial due diligence product, so basically companies that help other companies with buying and selling businesses, typically referred to as M&A, I'm building a product to help them with the diligence process. And on a feature that I've been working on for a little bit, which is going to add a ton of value, yesterday I got caught in a position where I was going round and round with the AI agent, and I feel like we were both getting frustrated because it wasn't materializing in the way that I wanted it to. Now, in the end, the fault was mine and almost mine alone. But I want to explain to you why it's important not to fall into a routine where you get quite a bit lazier than we have before we had access to these tools. And you need to maintain proper kind of thought process in terms of how you're leveraging them so you don't get caught in one of these traps as well, too. So, in order to avoid it, most important thing I would recommend is that you understand how the logic operates for whatever it is that you're building, right? I'm not saying you need to review every line of code. Reviewing some code would probably not be a bad idea, so you understand how it works. You can tell the AI agent to comment along the way if you're not as familiar or technical as someone like myself with the background that I have. But it is important for you to understand how the logic operates, how the data flows, basically the fundamentals for whatever it is that you're building. Reason why I say that is the issue that I ran into. What I was trying to do was not technically possible because the app didn't have access to the data that it needed in order to be able to do what I was requesting of it. So again, that fault was mine and mine alone, but the AI agent was also kind of just trying it to do it over and over again without being either transparent or even understanding itself that it didn't have access to what it needed in order to be able to do what it was I was requesting. The other is to understand exactly what I just mentioned, and that is that the AI agent, just like ChatGPT and Claude, when you interact with them on the web, things like it, it's designed to meet to kind of satisfy and meet your needs, regardless of what it's going to take it to do, so to speak. What I mean by that is it's just going to keep trying to do whatever you're asking of it, assuming it's a reasonable request or doesn't violate any of its terms. That means, and this is definitely one of the problems and one of the gaps with AI agents today, is they've been programmed to just continue to try. Or in some instances, and this is where the speculation is that this is where the hallucination comes from. They're also likely to try to like guess or make things up, and that's where the hallucination element comes from. But they're doing that because they've been programmed specifically to try to meet your request or fulfill the request that you're submitting of them or whatever. So you got to realize that and keep that in the back of your mind at all times. And I always have like a dose of skepticism for whatever it is that I'm requesting and skepticism on my part that I actually know what it is that I'm requesting. So if things don't go according to plan like they didn't yesterday when I was building that feature, I can kind of go back and rethink the process myself, which is what I did to ultimately figure out that, like, wait a minute, I'm asking the agent to do something that's not really possible because it doesn't have what it needs in order to be able to do it. So just realize that that's how these AI agents operate, and they're going to try. If you try to ask it to do something that's unreasonable or not possible, it's still going to try to do it. So it's up to you to really be able to understand whether or not your request is reasonable. The other thing I'll say is that and this is an area where you can kind of how to understand if you're falling into this trap like I was yesterday. I could have caught it a couple of requests earlier, and the way that thinking back now, the way that I would think about how I would have caught that earlier is this principle that I'm sharing with you now. And it's if I had realized that I went 5, 6 times, 5 or 6 attempts at this thing before I ultimately realized, like, why is this not working all of a sudden? Everything else, all my other requests are pretty much making their way through pretty quickly here, and this one doesn't seem that complicated, so I needed to rethink it. Short answer is rethink it earlier, right? Like if and the what I mean by earlier is if you've tried 2, maybe even 3 times at this point, that's getting a little bit long. 2 and 3 times, trying to provide more context or attempt the request again or whatever with the same result as in it not working. that's an indication that some type of logic or access to data or whatever, something else may be wrong. So I want you to kind of rethink what it is that you're doing. And then after you evaluate it from that perspective, think about how you might do it differently or what may be missing that you need to get, or maybe you need to take a entirely different approach as well too, like I did once I realized that my app's not really built that way. It doesn't, the agent's not going to have access to that kind of information. So I can't really do it in that way. I would need to restructure my application, provide access to more data, that type of thing, in order to complete the request that I was looking for. Okay, so to recap these, right? In order to avoid falling victim to this, expecting magic when you're requesting whatever of an AI agent, don't shut your brain off. I kind of did. It's easy to get lazy these days with how capable these tools are. Don't do that, right? It's okay to benefit from their efficiencies, but don't shut your brain off. Make sure you're still thinking critically about what it is you're doing, especially if it isn't going well, and then be prepared to kind of dive deeper wherever you need to. So understand the logic flow, better understand how all the pieces fit together, what information you have access to. Documentation along the way can help here in a major way. So, and the AI agents are typically excellent at that as well too. So you may do something like update your documentation or an MD file or something like that. And you can ask the agent to do that. You can always go back and refer to that yourself as well too, especially if it's been a while since you worked on your app. And for me, because the holiday season and we were sick and all that kind of stuff, it's been a minute since I was working on this specific feature, which I didn't complete before all that chaos started. So there was a little bit lost in translation for me, but use those tips in order to avoid falling victim to this trap yourself. The second one is realize that the AI agent's just going to try no matter what. So if you give it incomplete data set or like a variable or an equation with too many variables that it can only solve expressively or whatever, can't get you a number, it's going to try anyway. So realize that you'll go round and round there without getting to kind of the proper outcome that you're looking for because it's programmed in order to do that. So you need to maintain that understanding and approach it accordingly, approach the situation accordingly. And then the third piece is how to keep track of whether or not you're falling into this and try to avoid doing so and getting yourself out of it. If you do, is if you've made the same request 2 or 3 times in a row with the same results and not a whole lot of progress, then something else is probably going on at this point, especially if you're using one of the more modern models that are much more capable. So use that to kind of guide yourself there too. And then in terms of applying this strategy and stuff like it, just keep this in mind, in the back of your mind, while you're using AI agents to build your SaaS products. You just understand that there are these limitations in place and that you need to be diligent about not turning your brain off because it's easy to get lazy these days and not even really care that much about how the logic flow and the data that you have access to and all these important things when it comes to building a SaaS product because of how capable the AI technology is today when it comes to development. So keep that in mind as well too. And that's how I'd recommend applying it is just keep this information in the back of your mind and then use that as you're continuing to build moving forward. And then, as I mentioned before, please like, subscribe, or comment when it comes to this content. That way it helps me make it better for you.